Now, a tax appeals tribunal yesterday ordered Tullow Oil Company to pay $407 that's approximately 1 trillion shillings to URA. This, of course, was in capital gains tax the URA had levied on the oil company after it sold its interests in Uganda's oil stake, or the sector valued at $2.9 billion to Sinok and Total way back in 2012. We'll be discussing the dynamics of this case and the underlying factors that made the ruling in the favor of URA, or if, Tullow will be appealing and what their chances are. That on NewsNight. Welcome back. You're watching NewsNight. The old man of the clan, Andrew Mwenda, and CEO of the Independent magazine. Andrew, this was a landmark case for the URA to win yesterday. The URA must be counting their luck, because because Tullow will appeal this.
First of all, as a Ugandan, I am very happy that our country is getting a revenue windfall of $400 million, 1 trillion shillings. I should tell you that because the economy of Uganda right now is doing badly, is not doing very well, revenue collections by URA are far behind target, worse than last financial year. So there is a lot of worry inside the government that we will have less revenue than was projected in the budget, and that will be very difficult for the Uganda government to fund the budget. So this is a very important and landmark case for URA and for government of Uganda, because we'll be able to access revenue that we are losing in declining economic activity. But I am sure that Tullow is going to appeal and personally go for international arbitration. Wow. My worry is that at the level of international arbitration, it may not be possible for government of Uganda to win. Let me tell you actually the contents of the case.
Yes.
There is exploration area 1A, and there is I think they call it exploration area 1, exploration area 2, and exploration area 3.
Yes.
When they were signing the initial production sharing agreements on exploration area 1 and 3, EA1, EA3, the government of Uganda signed these agreements and they provided for capital gains tax. But with specific reference to exploration area 2, the Minister of Energy at that time, Her Greatness Honorable Saida Bomba, with approval, and look here Maurice, with approval of the Attorney General of Uganda, signed a production sharing agreement with Tullow saying that this specific area of exploration, EA2 will be exempt from capital gains tax. It's a clearly provided provision in the contract. Now, URA did an assessment, and URA made the right argument also. URA said the Minister of Energy does not have power to give an exemption to, it does not have legal authority to give an exemption to anybody, a tax exemption. The only minister with the power to give a tax exemption is the Minister of Finance. Now, for me, I put myself in the shoes of an investor. Remember that at the time these agreements were signed, Uganda was not an attractive destination for investment in oil. It was so, if you talk to the people in the Ministry of Energy, they will tell you it was so difficult for Uganda to convince international investors, especially the big oil players, Total, let's say Sinok, Shell, ExxonMobil, these big players, Chevron, Texaco, none of them was willing to come to Uganda because the oil was far much inland, the prospects were very low. That is why the initial people who came here were Heritage and Tullow. Now, I personally think that this was part of the incentive that the government put in the contract in order to attract these investors to risk a lot of their capital. Remember that these were small companies risking a significant share of their capital to find oil in Uganda. Now, if we go to international arbitration, this will be the question. The Attorney General of Uganda, there is a Supreme Court ruling in Uganda which says that the decision of the legal advice of the Attorney General is binding on all government institutions. If even the Attorney General of Uganda approved this contract, and in review of that Supreme Court ruling, that once, even if it was the Minister of Energy, who did not have the power, but if the Attorney General of Uganda approved,
does that override the law? The fact that already it's an illegality. So the Attorney General endorsing an illegality by law actually is an illegality.
But let me, because I'm not a judge and I'm not a lawyer, I'm just trying to use common sense. Because if I am an investor, I can't put money in Uganda in the honest belief that the people signing the legal instruments, including the Attorney General, are right. Who should take the blame? Do you punish me? Because if I am Tullow, I will argue, I invested because I invested these billions, hundreds of millions of dollars, invested $2.8 billion in Uganda.
Yes.
I have invested this money because I knew, or I had been given guarantees by the chief lawyer of government, that I have an exemption. The Attorney General approved this agreement that I have an exemption. Now you come after the fact, the government of Uganda is trying to renege on its contractual obligation to Talo. So there is this, who resolves that conflict? Because I personally think that a private investor should not pay for the mistakes of, for the mistakes of the government of Uganda. Do you understand?
Yes.
The minister signed, the Attorney General approved. Now another institution, it is again, I sign a contract with UNRWA to do a road. I finish the road, then you come and say, no, the ED was not the one supposed to sign. It was supposed to be the other, and even the
Minister of Transport.
Yes. So I don't get my payment. I find it funny. So anyhow, although I'm very happy that the government of Uganda has earned this revenue, and I'm hoping that they don't steal it in any case anyway. We are celebrating too early. The money may come into the coffers of government and the government officials of Uganda. You know how they behave.
Well, and then we have to pay a certain group of lawyers who have actually handled this case, and there might be an international law firm.
Yes, yes.
Let's discuss the fact that the government and UAE have over the past few years been engaged in a lot of court battles, including in London, where just last year the government won a landmark $434 million oil tax case in London against Heritage Oil. But also the whole debate around our oil industry and the fact that we have a very virgin industry which we are still debating on. Just the other day, Parliament failed to approve members of the National Oil Company.
Yes,
Who, by the way, should be running our oil sector.
I think that Uganda is a mess. Let me come to this issue of Uganda being... First of all, it is normal for governments and oil companies to always be involved in legal battles in courts and for international arbitration. Two, I felt that Heritage was just trying to cheat, because in the case of what Heritage was selling, there was no clear written contract that they would not pay capital gains tax.
Yes.
Heritage's argument, and that's why I felt it was effective, Heritage was saying, look, we are a listed company on the stock market in the United Kingdom. We do not. The value of what we have acquired when we sold at this amount of money, it's a value we acquired on the stock exchange. Government of Uganda was saying no. This value is not just derived from the stock market in London. It is derived from an asset which is under the ground in Uganda. So the value has increased because of the asset you're holding in Uganda. So you have to pay capital gains tax there. And I felt that their government of Uganda was in a very strong case. On this one, I have talked to different lawyers, and each lawyer has given their own interpretation. By the way, I should tell you there are other issues. You see, for Uganda to get this current oil out of the ground, it needs the three oil companies, Total, Sinok, and Talo, to invest a minimum of a minimum of 18 and a maximum of $22 billion. So anything between 18 to $22 billion to be invested in the next 5 years for Uganda to get oil out of the ground. Uganda's current GDP is $25 billion. So if you're going to invest $22 billion in this economy, it's going to be a big thing. Now, URA is saying, look, we are going to impose VAT on your activities. So if you import equipment, whatever you are, we are going to impose VAT. The total value of VAT on the 20 billion is going to be something about 5 billion, 5.7 billion, let's say. Now, or 5 billion. If they are going to tax these guys 5 billion even before they have sold oil, and the oil companies are saying, look, you cannot impose VAT on us on an investment. You must impose it when you are earning revenue. In other words, literally, the government of Uganda and URA are trying to borrow 5 billion from us in advance, even before we make revenue. Do you see? That is another big case that is going to come up. The third issue that these companies have is that when URA is imposing this VAT, they are saying that the oil companies cannot reclaim VAT. You know, normally when you are charged VAT or you pay VAT on something, it's called input VAT. On your output, you
indicate it in your account,
and therefore you write it off. And they're saying no, they cannot recover this VAT. And very many Ugandans actually have a belief. I'm sure those who hate Museveni would want me to speak otherwise, but I don't know why I should run away from the facts. What has impressed me is that the government officials of Uganda, in Uganda Revenue Authority, this guy like Ernest Rubondo, who is the Commissioner for Petroleum, Kabagambe Kalisa, who is the PS in Energy, they have had such a strong defense of the Ugandan national interest, to the extent that I think that in their passionate defense of the national interest of Uganda, they're actually undermining the very interest they're fighting, because it has become difficult for the oil companies in Uganda to operate, no, to actually extract the oil. Because right now, look, Ghana discovered oil in 2008 after Uganda.
Yes.
By 2012, they were already exporting in 4 years. Uganda oil was discovered in 2005. It's now 9 years. Not a single liter of oil has gone, and in the next 3 years, we're not so sure whether we'll export oil.
All right.
So,
all right, Andrew, we have to wind this up. We've fast spent our time. We'll continue this discussion on another day. Well, that was Newsnight.